okay, bear with me.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Safeguarding People and Tackling Poverty Corporate Delivery Committee for April. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
No apologies today, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Second item on the agenda is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. Okay, and then the third item on the agenda is the minutes, to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting, which was obviously in March, 27th of March of this year. Are we happy to move those minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Effie's and Councillor Curtis second. Thanks very much. Okay, so item 4 on the agenda is the Swansea Council Volunteering Policy Strategy Development. I'm going to hand over to Anthony to talk us through that.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just outline the report. There are three main sections of the report, looking at the municipal year that we've just gone through. So section 1 is the starting point. Section 2 covers the progress during the year, and section 3 then is next step. So I'll just give a quick verbal outline of what's included in those sections. So at the start of the municipal year, this was a piece of work that had started, and we'd at that point undertaken a mapping exercise across social services, adult social services, and the culture department, having a look at where the council is already hosting volunteers within those services, to identify examples, have a look at how that's working and what processes are in place to do that. And we found some good practice, and we also identified that various approaches were being taken, so not consistent across the board, but some good work. So section 2 covers the progress during the municipal year. A working group was established, a cross-directorate working group coordinated by the Tackling Poverty Service and also supported by Swansea Council for Voluntary Service. Membership has recently expanded as well. We've got some good membership across wider than just social services and culture now. We did an article on StaffNet a few weeks back. Call to arms, anyone that we're missing. We've had some responses from that, so I'm pleased to say the working group has expanded, and that group during the year has looked at current practice within the authority in a bit more detail than we did in the mapping exercise. We've also reviewed good practice examples across Wales, and we've identified the first step as being to develop a policy which seeks to address the work that's already happening and apply consistent approaches, following the good practice and aligned with the principles outlined by the WCVA. So as I said, the policy seeks to establish consistent approaches, principles, practice, definitions of volunteering, standards, and recognition of volunteers on their role and what they can offer us, and of course what we can offer them, and to celebrate volunteers as well. So an initial policy has been drafted. It's been presented here to the CDC, and yeah, again looking at standards, commitments. The draft policy looks at standards, the commitments, roles and responsibilities, recruitment, induction, and training. And thanks to the CDC for the comments that we've had when we brought that previously. That's fed into the work to date so far. So at this point now, and I'm pleased to say that the next working group of officers is actually tomorrow. So if this meeting was later than that, I'd probably have more to update you with. But the next step is a big step, because the draft policy itself refers to a handbook and toolkit for volunteer management. So that currently doesn't exist. So that is what the working group is going to focus on next, is what does that toolkit look like? What are the key ingredients that we need to have in place so that we can then take the policy forward for adoption in the future? One of those other things that we're going to be looking at in the working group tomorrow establishing what good practice looks like in terms of baseline data that we collect and hold on people who volunteer within the authority. That varies currently, but we're looking at what good practice looks like, so that in the future we'll be able to report corporately, you know, in terms of volunteering within the authority. We'll also be looking at aligning with work that colleagues in HR are currently looking at around volunteering and guidance, and I'm pleased to say that we've got a representative from our HR department joining the working group tomorrow. We have also, the other update is that we've also in the process we have applied for funding from the Shared Prosperity Fund to provide resources, including a member of staff, which will really help to deliver this work going forward. We're currently waiting on news on that application. I know it's still in there, and we are waiting for the approval of that funding. So that will really help with having the resources in place to take this work forward. And of course, ongoing engagement and co-production as we move through this journey, both internally with colleagues and with volunteers, our colleagues in SCVS, etc. So that's a brief overview of what's contained in the report, Chair.
Well, thanks, Anthony. Yes, thanks for summarising and all the work that you've done over the past year and the support you've given to the committee. Does anybody want to come in? Amy, of course. Anybody want to come in and ask some questions, make any comments to Anthony on the volunteering work? Councillor Curtis?
Not a question as such, just want to thank everybody for the work that's gone into this. I said, I don't think anybody realised how important volunteers are, because without them we wouldn't get anywhere at all. You know, I think they're involved in lots of aspects of what we're doing in our everyday life. So just thank you to all for the work that's been done, and may it continue. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jan. Councillor Jeffrey?
Oh, hi, thank you, Chair. Yes, much the same as Councillor Curtis. Just a general comment. I've read the draft report. I think it's quite comprehensive and covers everything I think that a volunteer would need to know. The only thing I was querying is the type of handbook that would be produced. I mean, the thoughts that I had in mind, would it be A4 or something A5, or a booklet, or a pocket booklet, or even something that's suitable for a mobile phone, you know, something that's readily handy, especially for you know, the volunteers. That was the only thought that I had on the actual policy booklet. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the positive comments. You know, greatly received, and thank you for the question, Councillor Jeffries. Yeah, really good question there. I'm kind of reluctant to answer in detail at this point, because this is the work that the working group is going to be looking at. Is what does that toolkit and handbook look like? It will, as you rightly identify there, it will serve a number of audiences. So one audience that toolkit will work for is managers and staff who have a role in managing and working with volunteers. And the other consideration, of course, is for the volunteers themselves. You know, what information and resources will they have access to? Now, in terms of what that will look like, I'm envisaging, so, you know, when this policy goes forward and that's at some point in the future then is adopted, and the toolkit along with it, that'll sit on StaffNet for staff and managers to be able to access those tools. We'll have, hopefully then through the funding, some resource sitting behind it as well, so that there's someone to talk to. And of course, yeah, there'll be some resources there that will be, you know, could be printed off. It might be online, you know, whatever formats are going to work best really for the different audiences. That's part of the consideration, I think, is, you know, who is this going to be for, and what's going to be the best way to make that available to them.
Yeah, oh, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, Councillor Walton and then Councillor Fogarty.
Thanks, Chair. Really just want to echo what Councillor Curtis said, that there's obviously a lot of work being done on this, a lot of thought being put into it. I particularly welcome the phrase where it says on page 9, there is a presumption of mutual support and reliability, i.e. it's both sides of the volunteers and the management. They are both equally important. So I think that phrase really just about encapsulates it, but it's a really excellent start, and thank you to the staff and the working group involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Councillor Fogarty.
Thank you. Yeah, add my sort of thanks and congratulations really to the staff that have been involved. I just wanted to ask, and apologies if I've missed this somewhere in the report, kind of what gets the policy over the line to stop it being a draft? And is that process already underway, or is the intention to actually develop the handbook so that the policy and the handbook can be launched simultaneously? Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you again for the positive comments. I will feed that back to staff in the working group, and I'll also, I'd like to thank the support that we've had from SCVS. So I'll pass that thanks back there as well. Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Fogarty. The policy itself makes reference to these tools that will be available. So the position that we think is the right approach is that those tools are developed to sit behind the policy. We can't really put the policy forward for adoption where it's referring to things that haven't yet been developed and put in place, like training modules and the various documents that are required for that consistent approach to expenses being paid, what data we want to collect and hold so that we can report on. We need all those developed and in place so that when the policy then can be adopted, everything that should be there sits behind it to make it work.
Thank you. Yeah, I welcome that approach. Can I just ask a quick follow-up, which is, and again, maybe you've said it, sorry, but the timescales now for the handbook, so when are we looking for like a launch, as it were?
Okay, I think I'm kind of a little bit reluctant to put a specific timescale on it. There is quite a bit of work to do with developing the toolkit. There are lots of moving parts within it. One of the big pieces of work, and there's a few pieces of big work within it, but one of the big ones will be to pull together and establish proper training modules. Now there are going to be some that will kind of reflect corporate and would be the same for anyone who's volunteering within your organisation, but then different services are also going to want to develop their own training specific to the activities that they're going to be doing specific to their service. It is quite a bit of work. I'm very hopeful that we get the funding approved. So that's going to help to bring in those resources, and if we get that funding approved, hopefully in the not too distant future, that'll really make sure that we can kind of pick up pace from where we are now. So number one, recognising that toolkit is actually a substantial piece of work to pull together, but number two, that resource will help us significantly in moving through that at pace. So I would hope that within a 4 to 6 month period, we'd be more or less there with, this is what the toolkit will look like. Maybe we're crossing the I's, dotting the T's, but that's a rough timescale that I'd be willing to put on it at this point.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Okay, I can't see anybody else indicating. And Councillor Fogarty asked the question I was going to ask about timescale. So just to say again, thanks very much for everything that you've done on this piece of work. And I was going to say myself, I need to pass on our formal recognition to SCVS as Julia Manso, to Julia as well for the work that she did at the earliest stages with the committee. So really appreciate that. Okay, moving on to item 5 then, which is the draft corporate personal debt recovery policy. And I think this one to you again, Anthony.
Thank you, Chair. Pleased again to bring this report and keep the committee up to date. Again, this report follows a similar format. Section 1, where we were at the start of the municipal year. Section 2, the progress that's been made, and Section 3, kind of where we are now and the next steps. It's a shorter report. I'll briefly summarise the content. So at the start of the municipal year, we did have an initial draft of a policy at that point, but it was very, very initial, quite rough, and there was still work going on with that draft, and that has been ongoing throughout this year, in fact. At that point, we were still in the process of engaging with various departments and services within the council, and that input has continued. During this municipal year, the policy has developed further with input from both services and from the CDC and members here that have fed in when the report has been when the draft policy has been brought here previously. In January of this year, the draft policy was at a point where it was appropriate that I could take it to corporate management team so that they could have sight of the work, early sight, and provide their comments. There were a few recommendations of specific engagements with some services that they highlighted, which was followed up on, and those items really were addressed and were updated further in the policy as it stands currently. And also then as well, other progress that's been made is we have taken that draft policy for initial engagement with some of our key partners through our poverty related forum. So the draft policy has gone to the Swansea Poverty Partnership Forum meeting and also Swansea's Financial Inclusion Steering Group, where the overview of the policy was presented and comments from partners were welcomed, taken on board, and any kind of tweaks or thoughts incorporated into the document that goes with this report. So at this moment in time, the next step now is actually to move to the formal consultation stage, and I have had some conversations with the Access to Services team, and we're looking at May, should be before the end of May, that will go out to formal consultation. It'll be a minimum of 4 weeks, during which time I'll be promoting that again with our partners to let them know that consultation is out live, and also engaging with our internal services as well as key stakeholders there, so promoting that consultation. The other thing that I'll be doing during the process of that formal consultation is engaging with those services that do collect personal debt from people within Swansea, as they will then need to consider any implications on their current operating procedures in terms of how they go about collecting that debt, based on the principles that are established in this draft policy. So it may be for some services that they need to make some changes. Maybe some services don't. Maybe everything's in line. For some, it may be that they may need to make some changes to the way they're doing things, or certain elements of how they go about their operations to bring them in line with the policy. And then following that, it will be for taking forward to Cabinet for consideration and approval. Thanks.
That's good. Thanks, Anthony. Okay, I've got Councillor Jardine first, then Councillor Watton. You're on mute, Yvonne.
Sorry. It just was to do with the consultation and about sending it out to partner organizations. There are lots of small organizations out there, and there's quite a few, for want of a better word, BME organizations out there that usually we don't consult with. And I was just flagging that up, that I feel we need to not just consult with people we know or organizations we already deal with, but to be looking a bit broader. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for the comments. Yeah, absolutely. We want, we want as wider and as broader engagement with any consultation that we're undertaking. I will say that we do work closely with a number of organisations, such as Bain Mental Health, Congolese Development Trust. There are a number there, but Councillor Jardine, if there are any organisations, if you want to drop me an email or provide me with any contacts, I can make contact and help promote the consultation, have some conversations with them to make sure that they can access that and take part.
Okay, thanks. Can I just have a follow-up question? So you have contact with, you've named 2 of the organizations. Do you have follow-up? Do you have, I don't know, do they respond? Do they come back with, do they take part? That, I suppose, that really is the question. Because you can send it out, I know, and you don't get a response. Then you have someone like me not complain.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Whilst I can't predict who will and who won't respond, the partners that are engaged in the forums and the part of our networks, we have a really good working relationship. They typically engage really well with us. Some examples around the warm hubs work that's happened over the winter period, really good, strong engagement and partnership working there. So whilst I can't anticipate who will and who won't respond, I will do everything within my power to make sure that they are able to. The consultation will run for a minimum of 4 weeks, so there'll be a good window. And if we're in the position where we're coming to the end of that period and we feel when we've not had the engagement that we would like, we can always extend that consultation period and make sure that our key partners have, regardless of how big or small they are, they have that opportunity to share their thoughts.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Watton, followed by Councillor Fogarty.
Thanks, Chair. Just to echo what Councillor Jardine's just brought up, I think the consultation is very important, not just for other groups that we might not necessarily always be in contact with, but people who are going to be affected. And I think that's going to be very important that we try and make sure that everyone that should be included in consultation is included, even if they decide they're not going to take part. But so, but that's a sort of slightly an issue of mechanics. I know. The other thing I was going to say is I think this is a good policy. I totally appreciate. What I want to make sure is that it actually works well in practice. And I heard you say about working with those who are involved in debt management. And I think we have got to make sure that they know about the policy and particularly know about the importance of being able to get people to understand we want to help. That's the first thing we want to do. The last thing we want to do is to punish, if you like. And I think that's such an important message, and that we've got to make sure that all our staff are on board with that, because for me, that is the message that really comes out of this document. So I think a lot of thought's got to go into the actual practicalities of making sure that this policy is adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Again, really good points that are being raised, and absolutely agree with them. First of all, your first point around, that the policy, having engagement from people that will be affected by that policy, and it should be affected in a positive way if it's done right and achieves what we want it to. So we have a number of mechanisms in which we can do that, and we'll be drawing on our colleagues within the Tackling Poverty Service and other services within the authority that are engaged with people to get their views, and our partner organisations. So not only responses from partner organisations that are part of our networks and forums, but encouraging them to engage with the with people that they're supporting, to take part and share their views. Yeah, it really needs to work well in practice, and that's why from the outset of the development of this draft, as you point out there, we have been engaged with those services that as part of their operations, they are collecting personal debt from people. I've been really pleased actually and encouraged by the responses and the engagement in this process from those services, and actually a lot of the good work that they're doing to support people. Particularly, I think we've seen a lot of effort to support people within Swansea during the cost of living crisis, and that's ongoing. So I think there's really good. I think that's a really good positive place to move forward with this policy. And the other thing I think that whilst there is a lot of good work happening in this area, what this policy will bring in is, again, like with the volunteer round, it's a consistent approach. So whichever service it is that's collecting that owed money to the council, these principles will set out a consistent approach. I will be on hand to support those services as they apply that policy to their procedures. If they have to make changes, as I covered earlier, it may well be that any changes to those operating procedures will require an IIA process, integrated impact assessment. So that will help guide those services to identify if the way that they're applying the principles of this policy are going to negatively affect any groups of interest or groups of place. That process is there to help, and I of course will be there to help. The other thing that was I think is probably worth mentioning, and it's not in the report itself, but it's in the policy, is and it was a recommendation from the corporate management team, is that this policy then is reported on a regular basis to the Audit and Standards Committee. So it will have that governance overview then somewhere where progress on how this is being run, how it's being applied, is actually reported somewhere corporately for ongoing review. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Walton.
Yeah, no, that sounds very encouraging. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fogarty.
Hi, thank you. So first of all, apologies that I missed the first couple of minutes of this meeting. I do need to declare a personal interest in this item as I manage a debt advice service within Shelter Cymru. My comments just build on really what Councillor Walton was just saying about how it will work in practice. And really my point is around how our communications to residents and members of the public reflect the spirit of this policy. So if you receive an arrears notice, for example, or a letter that in any way just makes you feel like, enforcement action is referenced, that's just not going to encourage somebody to pick up the phone and engage with the council and access that help and advice that's available. Whereas if all of those sorts of letters that go out to our residents also reference the spirit of this policy, I think that will make a real tangible difference. And I just second everything that Councillor Walton said as well about making sure that those that are actually giving debt advice and debt management services are fully aware of the position of Swansea Council, because it's not universal across Wales.
Thank you, Councillor Fogarty. Yeah, really, again, really good comments. Work in practice, yeah, and communications, the way that different services communicate with people that owe the council monies. We've certainly started off with writing this draft policy, deliberately trying to write it in a really friendly, accessible way. It's really important that in terms of our communications, that people know that we are here to help. You might be in a position where you owe us money, or you think you might owe us money or fall into debt in the future. We really want to promote that we're an organisation that is here to help. And I agree that the operating procedures and this policy may well and rightly so should kind of kickstart that. Well, let's look at the communications. Are we in line with the policy? Are we putting out a message that's consistent with what we're saying here? The policy should set the tone for that, and I would hope that services that are involved in this work, as part of reviewing how they do things in light of this policy, will consider the kind of communications and the messaging so that that is consistent, not just in the way that we do things, but the way that we present ourselves.
Councillor Pugh?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just look, I would like to thank the officers, because there's been a lot of work on into this, and it's been a long time sort of come in. And if I remember correctly, we've got to be going back, Anthony, 4 years. When we started, Amy as well started having looking at letters, looking at the altering the layout of letters so that it wasn't so frightening the minute that you opened it, if you can indeed get someone to open a brown envelope. Do you know what I mean? This hasn't been a rushed process. There's been a lot of work with different people, different organisations, back and forth to PDC, CDC, whatever whatever we are. But you know, I don't know that we'll ever totally get it right, because we understand that there's a lot of legal wording to letters and legal things that they have to sort of put in. But I think we are in a far better place now than when we started this. And I have spoken to people who have said that their help when they speak to officers on the phone in Rebs and Bens or or anything like that, that how helpful people are there. I appreciate you've got to get the person to pick up the phone, because people are frightened, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? And everything. But yeah, I just want to thank everyone really, and just to say there's, I'm really pleased to see this year now, and hopefully it will make a big difference to people.
Thank you, Councillor P. Yeah, I'll pass on the gratitude that's been shown here from the members of the committee to those that have been involved in this piece of work. And I'm really pleased that we're, as you say, this has been ongoing for some time. And of course, we've had the COVID pandemic and the cost of living crisis in the meantime, which probably has delayed things slightly. But I am really pleased now that we're at this point where we have a document which is ready for formal consultation, and we've had a lot, as you rightly say, we've had a lot of conversations and a lot of engagement to get us to this point. So yeah, thank you for those comments.
Okay, I can't see anybody else indicating, so we'll move on. So we're on to the final item on the agenda today, which is the work plan, which is for information only, really. As you all know, this is the end of the municipal year. It will be the last meeting of this committee. We don't have next, but this will be the last meeting of this committee. And just to summarise, really, that of the 4 items we've looked at this year, we've managed to get the three items to the point with not quite across the line, but pretty close to the line. And those 3 items have been obviously the corporate debt policy, the volunteering strategy, and the local area coordination, best practice guidance. We hope you all agree 3 really important items. Three really important items for the people of Swansea, and I think 3 items which really show the best of that Swansea Council can do for the people of Swansea. So just like to take this opportunity to really thank the officers for the work they do an awful lot of work. We know what your workloads are like. It's been an incredibly busy and challenging few years, and that's not going to change. And I think we were all really impressed by how much effort you put in and the difference that you make to the people of Swansea and what you do for us as well as councillors in supporting committees. So thank you both today, but also the officers who aren't here today from different directorates, who could pass on our gratitude. Obviously, a huge thanks to Democratic Services for the support, particularly Alison, who's been supporting me since I've been chair, and has been really, really helpful and really grateful for that support. Not forgetting legal as well. We have to turn up every time and listen along and make sure that we're following the rules that we should. So thanks to everybody for that. And finally, thanks to committee members as well for your attendance and for your support. And and for sharing your thoughts and challenging as well. So I think that's our work plan done for good now. So thanks very much for your attendance for today. And we'll see you all again soon at some point in the committee to be determined. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you,
Thanks
Chair.
all. Bye.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks all.